course of world events according to the development. In accordance with spiritual development, world events also take their course, and thus chaos will also become ever greater because humanity is constantly regressing in its development. For it distances itself ever more from the pole of love and strives towards the opposite pole, which is completely devoid of love. And this must have an earthly effect in complete chaos, in complete disorder, and thus in an unbearable existence for people, in earthly hardship, in lack of knowledge, error, wrong thinking and acting, and finally complete ruin, because nothing can exist eternally in such disorder. And thus humanity is drifting towards its spiritual and physical downfall, and that is the end. Where there is still an upward development, the state of disorder will not be found to the same extent, yet the individual's life is also adapted to the general state on earth. It is only more bearable because he adheres to God and makes use of His help. But from a worldly point of view, one event follows the other, always in accordance with people's degree of development, and since this development thus proceeds regressively, ever greater unkindness follows one another, that is, earthly measures and decrees conjure up ever more disaster for people, suffering and hardship become ever greater, for humanity lives without God and can therefore only carry out those plans which God's adversary submits to it. And therefore no worldly improvement can be expected, for where improvement is striven for, love must prevail, but this has grown cold and unkindness only gives birth to God-opposing things. And where improvement is evident, it is only at the expense of fellow human beings, who are thereby plunged into increased tribulation. Satan's activity in the last days is openly visible and recognizable to anyone who wants to recognize. And the time is approaching when his power will be broken for a long time. But before that, God allows him full freedom, for the human will is turned towards him and increases his power on earth itself. And only those people who strive towards God in free will can escape his power, because they are permeated by God's strength and clearly recognize the working of God's opposing power. Yet through world events all people can also recognize the one who is without love, and with an earnest will they can free themselves from him. For God has placed the law of love in every person's heart and given people the intellect to clearly recognize when they sin against this divine law. And therefore he also lets the great world events unfold in such a way that it can open people's eyes if they want to see. And it is up to them to decide for the better or for the worse, to love or to deeds of unkindness. Accordingly, his earthly life will also be more or less in order, and also the degree of his realization. And even the last end will not come as a surprise to him if he pays attention to the signs and world events which take their course according to humanity's will. Amen.